have my favorite shirt on, mostly because it's really warm. Super warm in my room tonight for some reason. I have no idea, but I need to wear a tank top. What's up guys? Welcome back. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. As you can see, this week's video is going to be something a little bit more on the educational side. This is actually a question that I get a lot, is what beginner tips do I have for cosplayers? So I thought it would be most helpful to everybody to just make a video about it. I did my best to put together some tips that I think will be beneficial to anybody starting out in cosplay, or at least I hope they will be. I hope they will be. It's been a little while since I've given out any beginner tips. Without further ado, let's jump into it. The first tip has to do with choosing your character. When it comes to choosing your character, I recommend focusing on two main things, and that is the complexity of the outfit. So you want to make sure that it's something that's a good, simple beginner project. Don't do a full suit of armor on your first time. For example, from my experience, it's really good to start with a very simple cosplay for like more basic clothes, nothing too intricate. And then from there, you can learn how to put a cosplay together. You can learn about researching, you can learn about buying wigs, and you can learn about sewing, and just focusing on doing that very simple project as well as you can to build those skills up. And then your next cosplay can be more intricate, and then more intricate, and more intricate. That's how I recommend going about that. And then when it comes to the actual character, the biggest thing that I have to say when choosing your character is to make sure that this is a character that means a lot to you. Make sure this is somebody who you're going to be really excited and motivated and just proud to cosplay. For me, that's certainly a really big part of it. If I'm cosplaying a character that I'm not super excited about, it's really hard to finish that cosplay. So certainly on your first try, it's really important that you have the motivation there to really go for it and put the cosplay together. So make sure that this is a character that means a lot to you, because I think for a lot of cosplayers, the actual act of cosplaying is like a love letter to media, basically media that has touched you or inspired you in some way, or like basically showing your love for a character that really resonated with you. So make sure that the character that you choose is from something that you're excited to cosplay from, and that the actual character is somebody who you will be excited and motivated to cosplay. So that's my first tip. More specifically, when it comes to the complexity of the outfit, I like to refer to something called the 5-piece rule, and this is something that I saw another cosplayer talking about years and years ago, and I think it's a really good tip, and that's to basically count the number of pieces that the character has and make sure that that either is below or meets 5 pieces. Obviously, if it's 6 pieces, it's not the end of the world, not including the wig. We're not going to include the wig in this. When it comes to the actual outfit, make sure that it meets 5 pieces. A good example of this would probably be the Pines twins from Gravity Falls. I think they are a fantastic example of this. When we look at Mabel, she has her sweater, she has her skirt, she has her shoes, she has her socks, and she has her headband. That meets 5 pieces, not including her hair, so that's a really great cosplay to do. And again, all of the pieces are very, very easy to either find or make, especially if you want to learn to sew and you want to make it all on your first try. That's a really great outfit to start out with, because it's going to be a really easy and manageable introductory project. But again, if you also want to just thrift it, it's very easy to thrift or just buy at whatever store. So that's a really good one to start out with. And then when it comes to Dipper, he has the t-shirt, the vest, the shorts, the shoes, and socks. We're gonna just amalgamate those two. I don't think the socks really need to be their own specific piece in this particular instance. And then he has his hat, and then plus the wig. And then the other thing about these cosplays, aside from being 5 pieces, and all those 5 pieces are very easy to come across, is that their hair is also a very easy kind of wig style to find. You can definitely find these types of wigs very easily on eBay, and they don't need a whole lot of styling, so that's a really good, again, in terms of wigs, introductory project. So again, 5-piece rule, and make sure that the character that you're cosplaying is someone that you will be excited to cosplay. And definitely I find that North American cartoons are a really good place to start, because they have those very simple kind of civilian looking clothes. So like, I don't know, Stevani from Steven Universe is another good example. Same with like Jana or Marco from Star vs. Evil. Those are good places to start. So that's my first recommendation. When it comes to actually making your cosplay, give yourself as much time as you possibly can. And I mean, that applies to whether you've started cosplaying or you've been cosplaying for a while. But of course, when you've been cosplaying for a while, you have a better idea of how long a certain cosplay will take, right? So when I look at a cosplay, I can pretty much determine if it's going to take me like 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years. I haven't had a 2-year cosplay yet, but maybe that'll happen. I don't know. But anyway, it's easier to kind of budget your time. But when you're first starting out, you also need more time to actually learn the skills that you're going to be using to make that cosplay. Whereas if you've been cosplaying for a little while, you've already learned those skills, so you can just work on the cosplay. So I would budget like 3 or 4 months. You can never give yourself too much time when it comes to putting together your first cosplay, but yeah, the more time, the better. You kind of have that time for trial and error. Maybe something won't work out the first time. You'll have time to fix it. And you'll have the time to build those skills as well as actually put the cosplay together. So third tip when it comes to actually making your cosplay is that Google is your absolute best friend, lifeline. Bless you, Google. I love you. I remember kind of like the dark ages of looking for cosplay things. If you found like the exact tutorial for whatever you were working on, that was just an amazing, amazing accomplishment. It was actually really hard to find tutorials, but now there's this just plethora of tutorials. Pretty much for any cosplay that you're working on, you can probably find a very specific tutorial for a certain cosplay or a certain skill. So use Google as much as you possibly can, use YouTube as much as you possibly can, and that will make your life a whole lot easier. Use Google, please. Now we're gonna move on to buying wigs. When it comes to buying wigs, whatever you do, stay away from Halloween wigs. I don't know if this is still a thing. I feel like eBay wigs are kind of like the baseline for beginner cosplayers, but back when I first started cosplaying, the baseline was Halloween wigs, and it might still be that way. I'm actually not sure, but either way, if you're looking at buying a Halloween wig, I'm here to tell you to please, no matter what you do not buy Halloween wigs. There's no way to make a Halloween wig look good. They're really shiny, they're very thin, you can't style them, they shed so much. Whatever you do not buy Halloween wigs. It will not look good. If anything, if you aren't able to buy wigs off of eBay or an online seller, you're way better off to find a character that has your same hair and cosplay that character and just use your natural hair. My first two cosplays, I used my natural hair because I wasn't able to buy wigs, and it worked a lot better than a Halloween wig would have worked. So at the time, I was kind of bummed that I didn't have a wig, but at that time, my alternative choice was to buy a Halloween wig, and I'm really glad that I didn't. So if you can't buy a wig online, use your natural hair. Do not buy a Halloween wig, and you will eventually be able to buy wigs online. It will be fine. When it comes to actually buying wigs, I like to think of it in two different categories. You can either buy eBay wigs, which are cheaper and not as good quality, but they still work. This, for example, is an eBay wig, and most of the wigs that I do wear for cosplay are actually eBay wigs. They work perfectly fine. That versus the alternative, which is to buy from a specific wig company like Arta Wigs, Epic Cosplay Wigs, or Gothic Lolita Wigs. Now, I like to go to these companies wherever possible, but they are very, very expensive. So I like to reserve that for when I'm buying long wigs, just because long wigs from those sellers, they're better quality, so they're easier to maintain and they don't tangle as easily, which, let me tell you, when you've worn a long wig around a con for the whole day, you really appreciate wigs that don't tangle as much. Or when it comes to a cosplay wig that you're going to be styling a lot. So when I did Tracer from Overwatch, I went for an Arta wig because it was thicker and meant to be styled like that. So that's the alternative. And when it comes to personal experience, I can only really talk about Arta. I'm very happy with all the wigs that I've bought from them. They make really fantastic wigs. Unfortunately, I don't have any experience buying from Gothic Lolita wigs or Epic Cosplay wigs, but I've heard really good things about them as well. When it comes to buying from those sellers, you have a guarantee of what you're going to get. There isn't some sort of kind of like a guessing game, right? When it comes to buying off of eBay, there's more of a room for discrepancy. I've had really great experiences buying off of eBay. I've only had one negative experience. So their wigs are good, but they aren't always exactly like they're advertised, whereas when it comes to Arta Wigs and all of these other companies, what you see is what you get, and the quality is very noticeable. So there you go. But really, there's no harm in buying off of eBay. If I'm on a budget, I'm gonna be buying off of eBay, but if I have the extra money or it's a wig that I really feel needs to be higher quality, I'm gonna go for an Arta. Next thing is wig caps. Always use them. They're super cheap, super easy to buy, and usually if you buy a wig off of eBay, they will come with a free wig cap. Use your wig caps. Trust me on this one. In terms of styling products, the go-to for cosplayers has always got to be, so that's this company right here. The two main products that cosplayers use is got to be glued hairspray. This is considered the best hairspray for holding wigs in place. And then the other thing is got to be glued, which is the spiking gel, which you can probably tell, that's for when you're doing spikes. Again, when I'm cosplaying Tracer, this is what I use to make those ends nice and sharp and pointy and spiky and just nice. Got to be is the company that basically all cosplayers go to, and I certainly recommend them from experience. Next tip is to always wear makeup. When it comes to cosplaying, always wear makeup regardless of your gender or the gender of your character. You don't have to wear a lot of makeup, just foundation and eyeliner will pretty much suffice in most situations. It's just important to wear makeup because wigs will drown you out. When I'm wearing wigs and I don't have makeup, I look ridiculous. It's not good. It's not a good look, so wearing makeup is always going to give you the best results in that situation. And when it comes to being photographed, you're usually drowned out when you have your photo taken. So again, makeup is going to help you not look drowned out. So that's why it's important to wear makeup. If you're new to makeup, you don't know a whole lot, you can, again, always consult YouTube. There are so many tutorials specifically for cosplay or otherwise that you can check out there. You're in good hands, don't worry. So these next tips don't have to do with the actual technique of like putting your cosplay together, but they are things I think are really, really important to tell to beginner cosplayers and even veteran cosplayers. That are important things to remind them of. Always measure yourself against yourself and nobody else. Don't compare yourself to other cosplayers. Always track your growth against your own growth. Everybody grows at different rates, everybody learns at different rates, and everybody's skills will develop at different rates. So that's why it's really important to not kind of look at, you know, a more advanced cosplayer and get discouraged. I know that especially for beginners, it's really easy to look at a more advanced cosplayer and get very discouraged that, you know, your skills aren't going to match that other person. And that's really just not a good mindset to have. Cosplay is about having fun, and it's really important to understand that everybody grows and develops and learns at different rates. So that's why it's so important to measure yourself against yourself and measure your current skills against the skills that you started out with. For example, like I said, I recently cosplayed Tracer, and that was a huge cosplay for me. It was a huge learning experience for me, and it was a huge kind of accomplishment for me. Is my Tracer cosplay as good as other Tracer cosplays out there? No. No, it's definitely not. But that's really not important. What's important is that I really pushed myself to make that cosplay and to learn those new skills, because I really hate building things. I love sewing things. I'm totally comfortable sewing things, but I'm super uncomfortable about working with chemicals and tools and stuff like that. But I really wanted to do that cosplay because I love that character a lot. So I really pushed myself to learn new crafting skills and to push myself to actually put together this thing, which for me was a very intricate thing to build. So regardless of if you're a starting cosplayer, you've been doing it for many years, always remember to measure yourself against yourself and be proud of where you've come in comparison to where you started, and not how far you've come in comparison to where somebody else is. Next thing is gonna sound super, super corny. I know you're all probably gonna cringe when I say this. Regardless, it's very true, and I really think that needs to be said, and as that cosplay is about having fun. That's why it's called cosplay, not cause stress or cause anguish. Have fun with it. It's not about competing with other people. It's about having fun, making new friends, and just celebrating the media that means a lot to you and brings you joy. It's really important to keep that in focus. I feel like certainly the community recently has changed a lot since I first started. It's become a lot more competitive, and that's definitely something that I've been upset to see happen. So be positive to other people, be respectful of other people, just make sure that everybody has fun, because again, that's what cosplay is about. It's not about competing, it's about being dorks and having fun. It's really, really important to keep that in perspective and to remember that. Those things being said, I'm going to wrap up with some things that have to do with going to conventions, but I think I'm going to do a full video on convention tips later on. But just right off the bat, these are things I think are really important, so until that video comes out, I want to make sure that I have these in this video. First thing about going to conventions is don't go alone. Always go with a friend or a family member. I know that that might be challenging for a lot of people because maybe their parents aren't okay with them cosplaying, or they don't have friends that they can go with. Totally feel you. In that respect, I think it's good to wait until you have a friend that you can go to the convention with. Just because I've been to conventions by myself, and it's not as good of an experience, and it can be very, very overwhelming. So it's really important, no matter how much experience you have, to always have somebody to go with you. Second thing, and really take this to heart, drink water and eat snacks. Make sure that hydration and eating, that is the main priority. Prioritize that against looking good. If you're just focused on looking good, you're not gonna have a good time. That's something that I constantly have to remind myself of, because sometimes you're like, I don't wanna eat because I'm gonna mess up my makeup. Doesn't matter. Mess up your makeup. Bring things that you can use to put your makeup back on, but always make sure that you're constantly hydrated and fed and comfortable, because otherwise you're not gonna have as good of an experience. You might look really great, but you'll be hungry and dehydrated and tired. You're not gonna be able to enjoy the convention to the fullest extent, so always make sure that those needs are met and you're gonna have a much better time. And if your cosplay doesn't look that great, it's all good. You can always do a photo shoot after the con where you just make sure that everything is perfect for photos, but when it comes to the convention, it's really important to just let yourself enjoy the convention. Just let yourself enjoy the convention. That's what I have to say there. Those are my beginner tips for cosplayers. I hope that you guys found those helpful. If you guys have any further questions, feel free to either send me an ask on Tumblr or leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to answer them. I just ask that you make them as specific as you possibly can. General questions are actually very difficult to answer, so if you can make them as specific as possible, that would be very much preferable. At the same time, if you have questions that aren't specific to like how I did a certain cosplay that I've done, then I recommend that you go over to Google or YouTube and see what you can find there beforehand. Chances are you'll find much more helpful resources than I'll be able to provide in just kind of like a quick typed out answer. So do some research beforehand, and if you still can't find the answer that you're looking for, you're more than welcome to leave a comment down below or send me an ask on Tumblr, like I said, and I will do my absolute best to answer them. And again, anybody watching, if you guys have any beginner tips that you want to share with anybody, leave those in the comments down below. We'll be as helpful and provide as much wisdom as we possibly can, because cosplay is really fun, and I know that's really daunting to get into sometimes, so anything that I can do to make your guys' entry into the cosplay world better and less daunting, I'd love to be able to help there. So there you go. So anyway, as usual, thanks so much for chilling out with me today, and I will see you guys all next week. But until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care. Bye!